Independent, how we dead in the game. We don't write to the sound of applause. Hidden truth, dotted lines, ain't never signed, stood and remain the boss. In a world that is full of facades, where if you speak, you get nailed to a cross. I won't be silent, I am outspoken. I am the product of pain, so when you see my name, no fame can never break down a brain that is already broken. Every wound is a paid devotion, they fill words as I purge.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of Theoretically Speaking podcast. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. Tonight, I will be by myself on this particular podcast. Mike and Miguel could not join me tonight, but it's okay. I'm actually going to be having another podcast tomorrow morning with a special guest, George Mata, who runs a nonprofit organization for kids in sports. So I'm going to be talking to him about sports, kids sports, particularly here in the Valley, and how it pertains to our particular demographic. Obviously, we're predominantly Hispanic or Mexican American or whatever. So, it's kind of different for us as far as in regards to Division I sports, right? And things like that. So, yeah, tune in tomorrow, 11 a.m. We'll have him on. But tonight, I really wanted to come on tonight and just, speak a little bit about the issues that's going on. I know it's been a bit overwhelming. Some people can, yeah, and a lot of you guys have heard so much of the news. I mean, we're constantly just being bombarded with it every day from a ton of different angles, whether it be CNN or Fox News or Facebook or what have you. Everybody is talking about it. But I kind of just wanted to discuss it and give my opinions. And since I'm alone tonight doing this particular podcast, if any of you guys out there have a question or comment, or you'd like to chime in, I'd be happy to talk to you about it in real time. But moving on, starting off, as you can see on the title above, it's going to be Ukraine is one of the topics. Ukraine and Russia, what's going on with them. Another topic is going to be some really what I consider to be breaking, astronomically crazy important news regarding the Fed. But what's crazy about it, even though it's like breaking, and I mean breaking because it's fairly new news, nobody is talking about it. I haven't heard hardly anybody talking about it, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to talk about the newest news regarding that, the Fed, and then after that, the Great Reset. All of these topics tonight, ladies and gentlemen, are to some extent related to one another. So I hope you guys can stay tuned to the very end. But let's just jump right in. So, as it regards to Ukraine and Russia, we all know what's happening. It kind of caught a lot of people off guard. Um, and a lot of people didn't think that Putin would do it, that Putin would invade. But one thing that I want to talk about is, the main narrative that's going on right now is that obviously Putin is the aggressor. He invaded Ukraine. Mainstream media and a lot of news sources, I mean, pretty much the whole world is rallying around Ukraine and for peace and stuff like that. And I'm one of those too. I'm all for peace. I hope that they can come to some type of agreement to, at the very least, do some type of ceasefire, to enter into negotiations to stop all of this, right? But whenever there's so much overwhelming support for one side, and especially the mainstream media being a part of it, it definitely causes me to question, why they're so overwhelmingly with it. So tonight I want to discuss a couple of theories surrounding that, a couple of potential scenarios that it could be. And again, if some of you guys want to chime in, comment on it, go ahead, feel free. But, scenario one, right, which is the one that we're going with, the mainstream narrative. Russia is the aggressor. And as of now, like I said, the world is uniting against Ukraine. The European Union, along with the United States, have placed a lot of sanctions on Russia, particularly with the SWIFT payments and the economy and the fall of the ruble and stuff like that. So we're pretty much all familiar with that particular scenario. But the alternative scenario is one that's quite interesting, and this is why it's kind of hard for me to completely accept that scenario because I want us to just think for a minute. Imagine if the coin was flipped and the opposite coin, right? So imagine Mexico for us, right? Because Ukraine is a border nation with Russia, and we know it's a strategic point. It's a strategic point for the United States. It's a strategic point for NATO. We know that they're one of the biggest producers of wheat in the world. We know that they're obviously a strategic military launching point for to halt or to launch, right? Hypothetically speaking, any type of war type scenario against Russia and or China. So that's very strategic in its nature. We also know that they have, I believe, a lot of stores of whether plutonium or uranium. I forgot which one. So obviously, Ukraine is strategic in that sense. Recently, they've been, NATO has been, I don't know if they've been trying to, I don't know if that's the right phrase to use, but for lack of a better way of saying it, to some extent, either NATO has wanted Ukraine to come on board with the North Atlantic Trade Organization, NATO, and basically Putin is saying, "Hey, don't do it." This is one of the things that Putin is not happy about. This is one of the reasons why he's invading Ukraine. Now, let's put the ball in our court, right? Or let's try to put ourselves in Putin's shoes. Imagine that Mexico, or let's say Cuba, is, the Ukraine equivalent for the United States. Let's say, because Russia, let's say they have the BRICS nation, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China. They're known as the BRICS nations. They do a lot of trade together. China is in South America, but more in the sense of trade and oil and things like that. So they're doing a lot of trade in that sense. But let's say there was some type of military cooperation that was going on with Russia and China and them. And let's say that Mexico or Cuba became, let's say, one of these nations that were in their organization in the BRICS nation. And let's say that Russia wanted to move into Cuba or Mexico and make them one of their allies, right? And according to that agreement, they said, hey, we're gonna protect them. Anybody who I have no idea. He looks pretty young though. He looks fit. Anybody who is an aggressor against Mexico or Cuba, we're gonna get involved. Russia saying this, right? I definitely highly doubt that the United States would allow Russia to get anywhere near Mexico or Cuba. So, when you think about it in those terms, in a way, it's kind of understandable why Putin would be a little aggravated with what's going on in Ukraine. Now, here's the second scenario. So the first scenario is obviously Russia is the aggressor, right? Which seems to be the case. But what if Putin in Russia he's actually on the defensive? What if he's doing some type of preliminary attack because he feels highly threatened? So one of the allegations that Putin has made against Ukraine, and guys, everybody out there, please take this with a grain of salt. I'm not a geopolitical expert. I'm just speaking about what I know, and again, guys, we're just speaking casually. We're just kind of theorizing. But again, scenario 2, what if he's trying to do like a strategic preliminary defense tactic against what he deems to be a potential attack that could come his way via, again, Ukraine being a strategic launching point for NATO? Now, one of the allegations that he's made, like I was just about to say, was he believed that intelligence agencies in the United States were actually training neo-Nazi radicals or military men to, I don't know, take him out, launch some type of overthrow Russia somehow, create some type of coup, some type of dissent within the Russian government. Now, that's one of the allegations he's made. Is he crazy? I don't know. Putin was previously I don't know if he was head of the KGB or he was in the KGB, but it's basically the Russian equivalent of the CIA or these intelligence agencies. So he's not dumb, for one. It seems weird, and a lot of mainstream media is saying, "Oh, that can't possibly be true, right?" Because the president of Ukraine is actually a Jew, right? But if we know what the CIA has done previously, it's not it's not crazy, these allegations that he could be making, because if you're talking about the book that was written by that intelligence officer, memoirs of an economic hitman, or diaries or confessions, that's what it was, confessions of an economic hitman, then we know that the United States has done these types of things before. Now, the question would be, why would Putin feel like he's in a defensive position? What would he think if let's say the United States and its geopolitical partners are planning or on trying to take Putin out, or trying to create some dissent amongst his government so they can get him out, so they can get a leader in there that's more cooperative with their particular agenda. And again, guys, we know that the United States have done this way more than one time. We've done this quite a few times. Um, and there's a lot of evidence of that, and I don't want to get too far into that now, but let's ask, why would we be doing that? Well, it seems that it would be beneficial for, it's hard for me to say the United States, because for us as a nation, it's pretty much, as a people, it's pretty much nowhere on our radar for this agenda, this direction that these government officials and politicians seem to want to be going in. But remember, they're the ones leading our country, and they're the ones that want to go in this particular direction. So what is it that they're trying to do? Well, one thing that they're trying to do is, it seems that they're trying to create a new world reserve currency and get away from the dollar, the American dollar, also known as the petrodollar. Now, to give a little bit of background on what I'm talking about, that guys, you're gonna have to do your own research for this. It's a little bit too deep to go into right now, but I'm gonna give you the gist of it. The United States dollar was backed up by gold all the way up into the 1930s. Our economy and the fact that it was backed up by gold gave us a lot of clout in the world, and it quickly became the world reserve currency, which means what world reserve currency now, okay, you know what? I'm getting too far ahead. Then in about the 1970s, I believe, under the Nixon administration, President Nixon decided to detach ourselves, the United States of America, from the gold standard, which was referred to as the gold standard. Now, what he shifted to was oil. Now, the question is, well, how did that happen? Well, what he did was he made, one of the things that he did, I don't know all the things that he did, but basically it included pretty much a monopoly of oil trade, or a great hold on the trade of oil. But one of the things he did was he made a treaty with Saudi Arabia that, in exchange for protection and weapons and I don't know what else other things, but basically this agreement with Saudi Arabia, they would trade all their oil in American dollars. That automatically gave the United States dollar demand throughout the whole world, because what that means is that any nation that wants to purchase their oil, they have to pay an exchange rate in order to change their currency into American dollars to purchase that oil, which means that you have to pay more. Well, how do you circumvent that issue and having to pay more for oil? Well, you hold American dollars. That way you don't have to pay an exchange rate. You can just pay for it in American dollars. So it automatically gave American dollars demand around the whole world. That's why it's known as the petrodollar. And that's what's giving it world reserve currency power and status for so long. I mean, again, it's not just that. It's the power and the might of the United States. It's the fact that we can flex our muscles throughout the whole world. But as we know, being that it's not tied to any particular static immovable standard that like gold, that means that it's subject to crazy inflation. And we know that as of late, that's what's been happening. The Federal Reserve has been printing money like crazy. Now, I'm going to get into a little bit of the craziness surrounding the Fed, and then I'm going to try to tie it all together as best I can, guys. And so the crazy news that I wanted to tell you guys about, and this is why I really think it was important to make this podcast today. To be honest with you, it's really hard to talk about a particular situation on my own and just, kind of go off on it. But I think it's really important. And what I want to say is that some breaking news came out. I heard it on Blaze TV, which is pretty much an alternative news source that was started by Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck was previously a news anchor for Fox News. But what he did was he reiterated a news release that was released by the Levy Economic Institute. If you guys want to Google it, Levy Economic Institute. So what happened was in 2008, after that financial collapse, guys, the Levy Economic Institute requested from the Federal Reserve information on the details of what exactly they did when they bailed out the American economy, right? We all know that they said, they bailed out the banks to the tune of billions and billions of dollars, right? Well, basically, they put in a request, I guess under the Freedom of Information Act, to know, well, exactly how much was it? Well, the law goes is that the Fed has up to 2 years to release that information. So 2 years pass. The Levy Economic Institute says, hey, what happened? What'd you spend the money on? And it went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And basically the Federal Reserve told the Supreme Court, hey, guys, this is highly classified information. We cannot divulge this information. It's really important. Let's extend it to 10 years. So they extended it to 10 years, which ended up being in 2018. So recently, they ended up getting that information. What they ended up finding out was that the Federal Reserve of the United States not only bailed out the banks of the United States, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and I'm forgetting the exact numbers, but a billion here. You know what? No, it was trillions. It was I think Bank of America was 1.3 trillion. But not only did they bail out the banks of America, they bailed out the banks of the world. They basically bailed out the whole world. The United Kingdom got a few trillion. The Bank of Scotland, I think, got 700 billion. The Bank of Japan got a couple of trillion. Banks all around the world got bailed out. And the way that they did it was they said, hey, guys, don't worry about it. So much was taken from the taxpayers, which they said something like 3 trillion went to the taxpayers. But the rest of it was literally simply digitized. They digitized it, which means they put it on their books, which means they didn't actually print it. Goldman Sachs, for sure, they're one of them. They didn't actually print it. They just put it as a number in a computer system, and that's what it was. The amount that they did this, according, again, to this release, which you guys can Google, Levy Economic Institute, was to the tune of $29 trillion. $29 trillion. It's such an astronomical number. For one, it's hard to wrap your head around, for one. For two, what does that even mean? What's the significance of that? Well, that's also kind of hard to wrap your head around because, for one, there's never been that much money in existence ever. For two, the nature of what we're doing right now with our monetary policy, again, has never been done before, again, ever. So this is literally like a new financial experiment that's going on with the Federal Reserve. How much money can we just digitize or print out of thin air? And how long can we maintain an economy or a nation or, even an international economy? Because, hey, guys, let's face it. I mean, because of technology and trade and et cetera, our economies are pretty much so closely interconnected at this point that they're pretty much international economies. how long can you maintain it doing this? So there's two in your head to really understand this, guys. You got to understand that there's two really different type of entities here, guys. You have regular people like us, because with us it doesn't make any logical sense, right? You're like, why would they do that? Why? These are smart bankers that graduate from Harvard and Columbia University in finance and all of this thing. Why in the world don't they know that's so dumb? All of those things, right? Logically and rationally, that's what we're thinking about, right? But one thing that you got to understand is, guys, these guys are the tippy top of the elite. Right now, that everybody is hurting from inflation and paying more money for gas, guys, these multi-billionaires literally right now are getting richer. They're making a ton of money right now. They're heavily invested in the oil companies. They're heavily invested in companies that are, moving oil and corporations. And we know what happened to the pandemic. I mean, it was one of the biggest wealth transfers in world history, where, Amazon, I don't know, some crazy figure, right? I forgot what it was. Oh, got $100 billion richer. Elon Musk became, got $100 billion richer, right? I'm just, speaking off the top of my head, but some crazy figures. A lot of these big players got a lot richer. They are not like you. That's the thing that we have to understand. Their their lives are not like our lives. When we hurt, they do not hurt. Matter of fact, they get richer. That's one. Secondly, and another thing I'd like to add to that, they're heavily invested in a lot of the resources, right? So when it comes to like, hey, we're running out of food at the supermarket, guys, they own the food corporations. They own Swift. They own Nestle. They're heavily invested, right? They're all in cahoots with them. Oh man, I'm running out of money, my job, inflation, etc. They own the banks. They have all the money, right? So they don't hurt the same way. Now, in 2019, during the COVID, one of the initial bailout bill, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was initially some disagreement between the Republicans and Democrats on the initial bill. The Republicans were stating there's too much pork, which means there's extra stuff in this bill and stuff. Well, one of those extra things that was in there was a CBDC, which means a central bank digital currency. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to create a digital currency where every American had to like download an app, and you were going to receive your pandemic payment through this application that you would download on your phone and through this newly created currency. Well, that was one of the things that they took out, and they didn't end up doing that. But this definitely alludes to the fact that it's something that they want to do. Another thing that alludes to the fact that this is what they want to do is these new policies that they're passing. Like, for example, everything surrounding cryptocurrency and Cash App, Venmo, Apple Pay, and how they want to be tracking any transactions that are over $600 or more. Guys, we know that our government now wants to be tracking as much of the transferring of money as possible. So, going back to Putin and the Ukrainian thing, what would be a great reason why Putin would feel like he needs to do or defend himself against some type of preliminary attack? Why would Putin be such an obstacle in the way of, let's say, the globalist agenda to create a new currency, a new digital currency that is not the petrodollar? Because we know that the petrodollar is quickly falling apart via inflation, for death by 1,000 cuts or 1,000,000 cuts, or 1,000,000,000,000, I might say, right? Or more, literally. In the meantime, you got to think about it, guys. It serves their purpose in every single way. Everything that's going on with inflation, these corporations, the demand for oil, etc., they're getting richer. Putin supplies somewhere, I forgot what the exact number was, but a great majority of the European energy, oil and natural gas. And China has created a digital yuan. So I don't know if you guys know this, but China recently created a digital yuan as a competitor and an alternative to the United States dollar. We know that one of Russia's biggest allies, right? They recently said in talks, I think it was the Russian president that said, or prime minister, or whatever he is, that the relationship between Russia and China knows no bounds, right? So if you want to create a new world reserve currency, I'm talking about the United States and their global partners. One major obstacle that could be standing in your way is a nation that supplies 3/4, or let's just say half, right? Including the whole world, right? Let's just say about, a great portion of the world's energy, that being Russia. It would make sense that you would want to get them on board so that they would trade in that same currency that you're trying to come out with. So that could be a potential reason, and that Putin is aware of, and that China is aware of, that he could feel as if the United States is trying to, set up their chess pieces, if you will, in order to launch some type of offensive, whether it be a kind of coup, or an intelligence type of offensive, where you try to create dissent from within, or some type of outright military attack using Ukraine as a strategic launching point via bringing them into the North Atlantic Trade Organization. So Putin might have been aware of this from afar, and what he may be trying to do may be a defensive. He may be trying to be defensive. But again, I just hope that everything settles, and they end up agreeing on some peace talks. But with that said, I'll just pause for a second. Is there any questions or comments, John? Where is the true money making? There has to be one big reason for all of this. Great. Oh, Laura. Thank you, Laura. Where is the true money make? We don't have any wars going on right now. It makes money to make a ton of money. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true, guys. And that's one thing I was touching on earlier, Laura, where I was talking about how there's these leaders, whether they be political leaders or corporate leaders, or whatever they are, that really literally have another agenda than the average American. You know, I think it was Roosevelt, or was it Eisenhower, one of those, that said one of the greatest threats to the United States in the future is the military-industrial complex. And yeah, like you said, war is a racket. Um, but now, speaking of the Great Reset, now the Great Reset is a term that was, I don't know who it was coined by, but recently it was talking about in the World Economic Forum. So, guys, when I'm talking about agendas and when I'm talking about all this stuff, guys, the new world order, the new global order, I mean, so many people associate that with, conspiracy theory, and it has all this types of negative connotations and whatnot. Guys, we need to be taking this seriously, because this new global order that is being ushered in is not conspiracy anymore. The Great Reset was coined or it was, I don't know if it was coined, created by them, but it was used. Do you think gas will go back down? It's getting pricey. Yeah. Um, I don't know. I don't know, Mika. I mean, historically, the trajectory of gases are always gone up. It's kind of like a wave. It has its ebbs and flows, and it goes up and down. But um, I think I think unfortunately the long term trajectory of gas is probably up, even though it'll probably, I mean, it just hit a high, right? So it'll probably stagnate for a while, I'm guessing. Um, and then, we know that the whole world is trying to do this climate and this whole green movement and shift to alternative fuel sources. But I don't think they're doing it for the purpose of actually shifting away from fossil fuels because they know how hard it is and how much it will not work. Um, I think one of the biggest reasons they're doing it is more for it's a power and control grab. Um, but yeah, I'll address that. We'll talk. I'd like to talk more about that in a little bit. But guys, back to the Great Reset. The World Economic Forum taught about the Great Reset, and under that Great Reset, guys, there's a you guys should look it up. You should look up Agenda 2030 on the United Nations website. It's a lot to read. You should look up, the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset. Guys, these leaders, these globalist leaders throughout the world have plans on basically controlling our lives to a lot greater degree, and the reason that they say that they're going to do it is to save the climate and to prevent from certain amount of emissions. I mean, they're saying that that's why now you're seeing these major corporations that are now creating these artificial meat products, and there's this big move to veganism. And there was recently a TED talk by Michaela Peterson. It was one of the only TED talks in the history of TED talks that wasn't published by TED Talks. And basically that TED talk was talking about the benefit of eating meat. Just a little context to that. Michaela Peterson had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, where she pretty much had to have a hip and an ankle replacement by the age of 17. She had to take a plethora of medications for that reason, for pain. Pain caused depression. Depression made her have to take another medication so that she would be a little bit uppity or whatever in order to do her schoolwork and whatnot. And she basically eradicated everything from her diet, started eating meat, and the arthritis went away and the depression. And she got a lot healthier. And she talked about that on a TED Talk. And they did not publish it because it wasn't according to this new meat-free vegan narrative. And we're seeing that everywhere. But, because, well, one of the things is that, commercial agriculture releases a lot of methane and farts and whatnot. I mean, guys, we've all heard it and whatnot. But to a certain extent, it's kind of ridiculous. Because there is a such thing as net zero agriculture. And that's just basically farming on grass. A lot of these cows that are in these commercial feedlots and whatnot, they're on dirt. And so there's no way because it's it's the grass, it's the plant, it's the ecosystem that sequesters the carbon. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that theory or that idea, but the the excrement from the cows fertilizes the grass grows, it creates a healthy soil. The microorganisms in the soil sequester the carbon, and they actually sequester more greenhouse gases than what's released by the cows. And so that's a net zero or even a negative agriculture cycle right there. So, a lot of these things under the Great Reset, and, we got to save the trees, and that's why we got to control where you go, how you drive, what kind of fuel you have in your car, and we got to control this. Guys, it doesn't make logical sense. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that recently Joe Biden, I don't know what he did. He canceled some oil deal right after the Ukrainian attack. It makes no sense. What did she say? Putin would not have pulled this. What was her initial comment? Not until Biden's out of office. This will not be happening and Trump is in office. Putin would have pulled this grab of Trump. So let's talk about that. I've seen so many people saying, man, this wouldn't have happened if Trump was in office and stuff like that. And to an extent, I agree. Why do I agree? Because I believe Trump was an anomaly. Trump wasn't supposed to be elected. We saw literally people on CNN, actors, and a whole lot of people on the news channels when he was elected, literally crying and throwing a fit over his election. Nobody in their right mind thought that Trump was going to be elected president. Trump was as far as the globalist elite, if you believe that there's a global elite, which you should, and maybe I should literally go, I've talked about it a little bit on this channel, and maybe I should go a lot deeper in it. But if you believe that, guys, they can pretty much pick their president. They have again, guys, they have societies. They have the Bilderberg Group. They have the Freemasons, the Skull and Bones. They have all of these groups. One of these groups is heavily at, I think it's what is it? It's is it Princeton University, or what was that university that George Bush went to? Either way, guys, one example is that when Bush and Kerry were running against together, both of them were Skull and Bones members. I don't know if you guys know that. So regardless of who would have became president, these elites would have had their guy as the president. So would Trump have let this happen? No, because he's a big obstacle. He's like a volatile firecracker. He's an exception to the rule. Like, he's doing his own thing, right? But I also don't believe, right? Call me crazy. I don't care what anybody calls me, but I don't believe that Biden legitimately won the election. Yeah, I'm one of those. And I mean, I believe it for a lot of reasons, but I think one of the most easiest reason to recognize is that while everybody fell asleep, right, between the hours of 2 and 3, everybody saw on that graph. I mean, people made T-shirts out of that graph. Like, literally, you had ballots come in where 99,999 out of 100,000 ballots were for Biden. I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff. Not to mention all the video equipment they have of taking bags out from under the tables. And I mean, man, they had really a plethora of evidence. But regardless of whether you believe that or not, guys, I don't know. There's some major players in government that go beyond what our president can do. Our president is supposedly the commander in chief of the executive branch. But think about the executive branch. The executive branch includes the Attorney General of the United States, the intelligence agencies being the FBI, the CIA, obviously the military. The military includes, again, the military industrial complex, right? Because the military is the one that gets contracts from major corporations for guns and et cetera and et cetera. And I don't know if any of you guys heard Taylor Majori Greene's podcast when she went on the Timcast IRL podcast, where she spoke with Tim Pool. But they were discussing term limits. And Majori Greene, I discussed this before on our podcast before, but her response was, guys, it doesn't matter. You got to understand, these guys have assistants and that are career politicians, and one great example of that is this corporation called Demand Justice, who's recently been fighting to get the new Supreme Court justice in office. You go ahead and Google them. I mean, they're literally they're getting funded by an organization called 1632, the 1639 Fund. That fund is getting funded by another organization called, I think it's called Arabella Equity or something like that. And Arabella Equity was given a donation like $50 million by some anonymous donor. And then it basically trickled down to these people. And these people are getting the Supreme Court justices put in place. Guys, it's crazy. The rabbit hole goes deep. You may think I'm crazy and this may sound like conspiracy theory, but it's a fact. If you Google that organization, they're literally the one who's making the recommendation for the Biden nominee of the Supreme Court of Justice right now. And not only that, there's some people in power right now, and it's a lot of names to remember, but they're currently in positions of government right now that also work for this particular organization, the Demand Justice Organization. And like I said, there's tens of millions of dollars that are flowing down through this organization called Demand Justice that is going to these organizations and these organizations' motives and agendas. So what I'm saying is that if Trump was here, would this probably be happening? Probably not. But if he was here, what would be happening? We knew that during his presidency, there was one scandal after another. They tried to impeach him 2 times. They're currently trying to bring up some legal situations that happen between his son and some type of banking. Like, they literally do not want this guy to become president again. And what that tells me is that these people, if they can alter an election, and I don't whether, regardless of whether you believe the election was stolen or not, okay, that's besides the point. They still had the power for a lot of these situations in a lot of these different states to not go and go be before the judges, to actually, for that information to actually be released. It was actually shot down in a lot of different places. The mail-in ballots was allowed. There was a lot of crazy stuff. So, I mean, these people are powerful, is what I'm saying. And I don't know what Trump could have done, but I definitely do believe that he would have stood in his way more than that. And one thing that he was spot on about is when he had the discussion with NATO, and he was basically getting on their case, particularly Germany, for creating this trade agreement with Russia, that Russia would there was the creation of this new pipeline, and that Russia would supply something like 2/3 of their energy. And Russia was saying, basically, it's not fair that we're protecting you as part of a NATO country, and here you are making this agreement with Russia for 2/3 of your energy. And they're saying, hey, well, Germany's response was like, hey, it's just trade or whatever. And he goes, no, I disagree with that. There's trade where you're trading goods and stuff, and then there's energy, and you cannot be energy dependent to a country that can be a potential geopolitical or military threat. And this was back in 2016, and he was spot on. So, again, it's crazy. I wanna try to end this off with some type of solution, right? Because I never like to just talk about problems and not go anywhere with it. What do we do? What do we do, guys? Considering the fact that the dollar may inflate all the way like Zimbabwe inflation, where you literally have $1 trillion bills that mean nothing. You can have a bag of $1 trillion bills in your bag, and it's not gonna buy you a loaf of bread at the store. Um, what do we do considering the fact that they may or may not, but it seems that they're going in the direction that they want to create a central bank digital currency, a digitized dollar, where they know everything and every transaction that you're going to make? I mean, what if they connect vaccine passports to that? You know, let's say, what if it's just like the Book of Revelation? What if it's this type of thing where it talks about a mark on your head, or or on your hand or whatever? I mean, what if the prophet John saw that as being the phone in your hand? What if he saw that as something that Elon Musk creates, like Neuralink, where you get this thing or chip in your brain, and it just has all your information in it? You no longer need a wallet, you no longer need a phone, and the whole digital currency is connected to that. And what if they can control where you work, when they fire you, etc.? What if we go in that in direction? you know what are you going to do? What are we going to do? What if there is a great reset where they want to control the resources, the land, the agriculture? I mean, we're already seeing right now that the price of goods is crazy. You can't get plywood, you can't get particle board, OSB board for construction. I mean, ask some construction workers around me. I mean, stuff is crazy right now. You can't build. You can't. There's a lot of food is so pricey. Fuel. What are you gonna do, guys? This is the best thing that I could say, and I've said it before. We need, for one, we need to start to try to create more of a culture community, a local culture community. But guys, invest in assets, um, things that you can. Right? I mean, right now, I mean the price of homes and stuff is going crazy. But if you can get land, if you can own your own land and work your own land, right now, me personally, on a personal note, I'm not in a position. Right, I live in an area, I rent a place where I can't grow my own food and things like that, but that's what I'm working towards. um I mean, actually, I bought a cow recently. I bought a whole cow recently. um so It's something that I'm working towards, but to the extent that you can, try to get your own land, try to grow your own food, try to start raising your own meat, your own eggs, create relationships with people in your community where that are like-minded, that maybe they're doing the same, or maybe they don't have the means to do it, but maybe they can help you. Maybe if you have 5 acres, there's somebody that still rents, but what they can say is, hey, through via our relationship and our friendship, can I, invest in some animals or some chickens or whatever, and can I create a little coop on your land, or can I rent a little portion of your land? How can we help each other, guys? How can we start doing these things? Because as the I don't think, Mika was talking about gas. Will gas don't ever go back down? It may or it may not. Again, like I said, the historical trajectory is usually just it's up, right? It's definitely not down. Um, Whether sooner or later. But I think one thing we can be certain of is that the nature of global politics and global economy is it's becoming more globalist, and it's becoming more controlling, and it's becoming more tyrannical. And it's something that we've been insulated for so long. It's something that's hard for us to wrap our heads around because we live in the United States of America, and we've lived under a constitution for so long. But it's only a matter of time before they have a good enough reason to pretty much say, you guys can't bear these certain kind of arms anymore, and you guys no longer have authority over your own body. And I have a really great reason, and that reason is because there's this virus that's going around, and now you're a threat to other people. So you no longer have control of your body because you're a threat to somebody else's body. It's pretty much been the tactic for a long time. If I can make you afraid enough and basically yell, blood in the streets and everyone's dying and you're gonna die, it's usually a good enough reason for people to support legislation to take away certain people's rights, constitutional rights over their own body and what they do with their own body, whether it be vaccine or to work or what have you. So, I definitely think that's the direction that we're probably going to be going in, whether sooner or later. And so you guys got to start thinking now what you're going to do to prepare for that. And I think one of the best ways to prepare for that is to create your own type of local economy where you're not dependent on dollars, where you're not dependent on somebody hiring you. You know, um, that's why I've seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people recently starting their own businesses and stuff. And man, that's great. I'm so happy to see that. I That's one thing that you should totally do. Try to create as many streams of income as possible. Um, I know that that kind of sounds contrary to what I'm saying because I'm saying get away from the dollar, but unfortunately, one way to get away from the dollar quicker is if you make enough dollars so that you can invest in things that are assets that will appreciate on their own, whether it be land, animals, again, a garden, what have you. So barter with your community to help one another. 100%, Laura. So speaking of which, to end it off, uh, go out and vote tomorrow. um, I recently saw somebody put a post in reference to voting that says if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. And it's in reference to voting, guys. I know I'm speaking about how I believe that the election was tampered with, whatnot, and that might sound contrary to what I'm saying to go and vote if I believe that it can be tampered with, but I just believe that they tried really hard and they pulled it off. That doesn't mean that voting is um is useless. So go out and vote. Um and I hope I hope to some extent somebody gleaned just a little bit of information. I know I covered a lot and it was a lot, but thanks, Irvin. But if you guys look, if you guys, I'm gonna try to put like my money where my mouth is, type of thing. If any of you guys have any particular questions on some of these things, I know a little bit about a lot of stuff. I'm trying to do it myself, so I'm trying to create as many streams of income as right now. Right now, I'm trying to get my real estate license. I'm getting certified. I'm trying to get certified to be a data analyst. Um, I know how to build websites. I know how to do a little bit of marketing. Um, Again, like I told you, I bought a cow. I'm trying to connect with farmers in the community in order to create this type of culture where there's an alternative to the commercial supply chain in regards to food. Um, Ideally, man, God willing, one day I'll be able to get my own land and hopefully have my own water source because that's super important too, whether it be a well or what have you. So I'm trying to do all these things. I don't know what you may be trying to do, but guys, I mean, obviously I'm the head of a household of five, and I can't say that I can do whatever. I don't know, but whatever it is that you have to say, to whatever extent that I can help you, reach out to me. I'll do what I can. Let's try to do this together. Shoot. Who knows? And there's some hope, guys, because on that note, speaking of local farmers and ranchers, I've and you know what, in another podcast I'll probably have one particular rancher on, and he'll be talking, we'll be talking about, I don't know if you guys have seen, the meat that the meat market, online meat market I was recently trying or getting off the ground, which that's still in the process. Hit a little speed bump, but that's going to be coming out. We'll be talking about. But guys, I'm surprised at how willing local ranchers and farmers in this community are to connect to the community. And what's crazy is a lot of them have actually been looking for an opportunity to build that bridge with local community members where they can sell their product to, whether it be, meat or eggs or what have you. So guys, just let's just try to connect. Let's just try to help each other out. Let's try to plan for the future. Let's try to, unfortunately, think about, I don't want to say a worst case scenario, and it sucks to think about those things, but let's try to be as ready as possible. And with that said, guys, good night. God bless.